Oh wow.
Oh,
Jeez.
there they are.
Yeah, they just dude, it smells.
Oh, that's
Oof.
what that is?
Jeez. Oh my god.
Wow.
Alright, so what do we have here, Brian? Tell us what you painted and what this army is.
So, here we have a nice force of putrid Blight Kings with some demon support. And led by this lovely Great Unclean One, the Gut. He's quite gross, as a Great Unclean One should be, but also quite jovial. So he leads 20 Blight Kings, 10 of which are under the command of the great and mighty Gutrot Spume, Lord of the Plague Fleets.
That's this guy right here, right?
Yes, right there.
Yeah.
And his banner man there.
He's like a Blood King pirate,
He is
right?
Lord of the Slime Fleet, I think.
Slime Fleet, yeah, that's right.
So, one unit of 10 with Gutrot leading them for some lovely outflanking shenanigans.
Yeah.
And 2 more units of 5 here, as well as some supporting characters. So here we have Festus, the Leech Lord, the Plague Doctor himself.
I love how he's pouring that whatever contraption juice, and then
vial of acid.
Everything's being just like decomposed and just like acid coming out.
His poor hapless victim.
Yeah. Great motto.
A Rotbringer Sorcerer and a Harbinger of Decay. He's made up of quite an ancient Chaos Warrior.
Yeah,
from the 80s.
This is a beautiful conversion you did here. So what models did you use?
So he's the horse he's riding on is a Chaos Knight horse, and the body itself is, as I said, an old pewter Chaos Warrior, probably from the 80s.
Was it a mounted one or was it?
Yeah, he was a mounted one. He's got those crazy pointy shoes. He really has that old school Realm of Chaos look.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like chainmail stockings.
Yeah.
You know, the little dangling bits in the front.
Right. And he's got a Blight King's scythe as well for his other weapon.
Yeah, just to kind of, tie it into the whole army.
And to match what the War Scroll has for his weapons too.
Okay.
So he's quite an important part of the army. And then 2 units of plague drones, or 1 big unit of 6, if you so choose. They're lovely, pale, pasty white plague bearers riding on those big flies, quite gross. And the Gut, as we said, and finally the Maggotkin of Nurgle, Rotspawn. Yeah, I think so.
We'll check it and
Yeah.
come back at you.
So
Gloab, yeah.
And he's a sorcerer. He's made up of a whole lot of flies, I think, underneath his hood. So they're all streaming out the back of his nasty, tattered robes.
Yeah, it looks like a butcher's robe full of, or some sort of horror kind of medical doctor. One of those like experimental guys who like chop people, and it's got the whole blotches and the blood stains and.
Yeah, I made sure to add a lot of nasty stains on all of their cloth across the whole army, because being a Blight King's messy business.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your paint scheme, because it's not the conventional green and brown and like the Nurgle colors. It's kind of pasty and white and
so
kind of way grosser looking.
The main thing that I wanted to try when I started this army was when I was a year or 2 ago, I was really into building post-apocalyptic terrain. So I came up with this really good recipe for doing rust, and I used it for doing terrain, and I always wondered how it would look on a fully detailed miniature. So I took the plunge and I got out a can of hairspray and some salt and some paint and did some experiments, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. The rust turned out better than I could have hoped. So that was really the main driving force behind the paint scheme. So to sort of counteract the dark and dingy rust, I did make all the flesh really pale, and that helps to highlight all the nasty sores and the bruises and all those icky, lovely things that Blight Kings are so well known.
They're very earthy, because usually, like the way people paint Nurgle, it's very green and slimy. This has a very earthy and kind of like compost look to it, especially with the armor being kind of like fall leaves, you know?
Yeah. It gives it a nice...
It's got a very nice kind of like...
contrast, I think.
A Thanksgiving theme.
And who is more thankful than
Papa Nurgle.
Papa Nurgle.
Exactly.
He is. So that was the main thing. That rusty paint scheme was. I was really happy with that. And so all of the medals of the whole army are painted with that. There's actually not even a single drop of lead belcher or any silver paint on it. All the metal is just done with browns and sponged on, and it's
so how did you rusty. I mean we're gonna probably showcase Brian's technique where painting.
I'd love to do a tutorial on it.
Yeah.
But basically it breaks down pretty simply, where I sprayed them all with a dark brown, Rhinox hide in this case, and then over that I did a light coat of a water-based hairspray. And so you take two different types of salt, the coarse salt, like kosher salt, and then regular table salt, which is the fine grains, and you sprinkle that all over the model while the hairspray is still wet. So that will the salt will adhere to the hairspray. So you let that dry.
Do you mix the two salts and then dunk in the model, or
No, I sort of pick it up and sprinkle it over, and turn the model, sprinkle all on this side.
So it's a pretty heavy coat of hairspray just to get it wet.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay. It's a fairly liberal coat, but because it's water based, it'll easily wash off. So the idea is you stick a bunch of salt all over them, and then after that I spray it with a coat of Jackaro orange, which is a bright orange. So once that is dried, you run them under a faucet, and the water washes off the salt, and it leaves a really good-looking pitted texture with the dark color underneath and the bright orange on top.
So you're using the salt like a mask.
Yes, exactly.
Basically. So when you hairspray, when you spray in the Jackar orange wherever the salt is, it creates this kind of like unhomogeneous kind of texture, kind of random, so no miniature is alike.
Exactly.
So it's very cool.
It's it's a really organic looking way of masking it off. So over that, then I picked a Mornfang brown, Scrag brown, and then more Rhinox hide, and I sponged those on to just randomly across all the metals, and hit them all with a little bit of Agrax Earthshade in the crevices. And that's about it.
So you just picked up the little crevices instead of just doing the whole model?
Yeah, you don't want to do the whole model because some of that bright orange will be in the crevices, and that helps reinforce the rusty look.
Sure, of course.
So by the time you're done, all the metal is done, and it's quite an easy technique. It's just a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah, that's what we specialize here, outside of the box techniques.
Yeah,
we're going to be featuring all sorts of techniques and ways of painting throughout the year. We're going to be going through. I know I'm working on a Tau video. Then I'm working on other kind of secret sauce projects.
This guy's a mad genius when it comes to experimenting with paints.
It comes from a background, I guess. But why just do it one way? I love dunking. I love the Games Workshop techniques and like the heavy metal techniques. But there's so many ways to make your army still the same color scheme.
That look totally unique,
but very unique.
Changing up your techniques.
Exactly, yeah. So, I think a combination of all techniques is very important because everything is a tool. So, for example, when you paint with just hand brush painting is a tool that produces an effect. Airbrushing, it's another effect. Using different ways of masking, like Brian used salt. To mask.
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
There's so many different ways. There's so many layers. There's so many ways of creating like different effects and shadows and things that are outside the box.
you come up with something that looks unique and can look really cool too. So yeah, and after all the medals are done, it's just a matter of painting the flesh and the horns and stuff like that. Fairly standard.
Tell us a little bit about your basing, because I really like the contrast in here between the browns, the grays, and a little bit of grass that you have on there.
So the bases are also quite a simple technique, and it's one that I've grown quite fond of. So the grey rocks on the bases are just cork board, broken up into little pieces of rubble, glued on, fairly standard. And then the texture on the base is a mix of the GW texture paints.
The Grell and Earth?
Yeah, Grell and Earth. Well, that's the Crackle one. So the Sterling Mud.
Sterling Mud, yeah.
Yeah, so I paint that all over the base, and I don't have to cover the whole base, because the parts that don't have much texture, you then go back and you put a coating of the Grell and Earth, which is the Crackle paint. And even though the colors are quite different to one another, after that you hit it with a really hard, heavy dry brush of like a Steel Legion drab brown, and that ties them together. A bit of Agrax Earthshade on it, and you get the best of both of those basing textures in one base. It really makes a good blasted wasteland sort of basing look.
For sure. Because the Sterling Mud over here kind of like ties in the edging of the rocks.
Yes.
So you get this kind of like windswept, like little gravel like going under the rocks.
Plus you can use it to hide some of your like
mistakes, or
your joins where the cork doesn't quite go flush with the base. So it's
I shouldn't say mistakes, just like the nature of the product.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So
we don't make mistakes.
Yes, happy accidents.
Happy accidents.
As the legend Bob Ross would say. So yeah, the bases are, I think, they're also light enough, and they contrast well enough with the orangey armor. I think that it, as a whole, it really unifies the force quite nicely. You got to add a few of those tufts of grass too. I did that. The last thing that I added, and that just gives a little bit of color and a little bit of vibrant.
I think so. It's the life starting to bloom again after the decomposition, right? After
Nurgle brings
decay.
life. It may not be what you're really looking for, but he's bringing it
Definitely
regardless.
Spores and everything. Mold.
Nastiness.
All right. So what's next? We're gonna be working on some new secrets here. Or?
I have always wanted to paint the Maggotkin.
Okay.
I think he would be a good addition.
Okay.
And there's always room for more Blight Kings too. But could also add more of the mortal Poscoil Blight Lords, the ones riding on the giant Rotflies.
Make it a full Mortal Army.
Yeah. I like having the Plague Drones, but it is a different faction. You know, if you wanted to run straight Mortals, you could have the same sort of effect with the Rotbringer Riders instead of the Plague Bearers. And so yeah, there's a few different units that you can still add to this army, but as it is, it's quite a good starting 2,000 points plus of.
It's about 2,200 points right now.
Yeah, a couple of characters extra in there. So
in general, what's your idea? Like we've spoken about the hobby aspect of it, but what's your kind of how would you run these in a game? Like what's your
so the trick with these guys, I think, is to give the Great Unclean One a bell, to give those super slow Blight Kings a little bit of a much needed boost of speed. Oh, something else that needs to be added is one of the feculent Gnarl Maul.
The trees.
Tree. The Nurgle tree is quite handy for
makes you run in charge.
So really, this army works around synergies with the characters, particularly the Harbinger of Decay. His command ability gives everybody within 14 inches, I believe, a 5+ disgustingly resilient sort of save.
It's like a feel no pain.
So I think it's important that he's central in your army because he gives that extra layer of protection, which the Blight Kings, even though they have a lot of wounds and they're quite tough, they could certainly use that extra defense against mortal wounds and such.
Yeah, there's a lot of the original armies suffer from mortal wounds. Even now, some of the Stormcats, they don't really have a good way of defending themselves versus a lot of the mortal wound outputs. And I mean, we can go into the new Skaven Battle Tome, and what they do.
There's a lot of mortal wounds that can come out of that.
And they have reach, so they don't even need to be near you. And that's the thing, like, because Skaven are so weak and kind of like a glass cannon. They don't want to be near you, so they want to have that distance to
shoot you from afar.
Because I mean, they're sneaky and they're cowardly, right? And backstabbing, so they don't want to confront you man to man or man to rat.
Yes,
right.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so
I think it would take a lot of rats to bring down the Blight King. They have firepower on their side.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other thing that the Harbinger brings to the table is he has the demon keyword. So keeping him close enough to the plague drones can activate their locus of virulence ability. Which gives them more attacks, and they're actually a pretty effective hammer. So he's central to the army list. Also, Gutrot, with his unit of 10 Blight Kings, he's able to come in 9 inches away from the enemy on any table edge. He does the classic outflanking maneuver with his slime fleet. And having 10 Blight Kings in your back line or coming in on an unexpected side to take an objective is not something that the enemy's going to want to ignore, because if they do, they can certainly put some hurt in and be impossible to dislodge too. I mean, that's 40 plus wounds in a unit.
Yes.
So
sitting on objectives and just dishing out some hurt. We've been speaking about this. It's kind of where, kind of the community as a whole stands on it. The way Games Workshop worded the Blight King's special ability with the blighted weapons. Is that what they're called, blighted weapons?
Yeah, where you roll a 6 and it turns into D6 hits.
So instead of it being a flat 6, a natural 6, it's a 6 or more, meaning that it has the ability to be modified. Where they hurt right now is that other units are able to modify their to hit roll, which would make that a 7-up or an 8-up.
That nullifies the blighted weapons completely.
It completely nullifies that, where the army itself doesn't have any ability to give itself a +1 to hit.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bit of a drawback with the Blight Kings. There's no way to improve their plus to hit. So
that's kind of where they hurt right now. Let's hope Games Workshop kind of rewrites that rule, kind of puts an FAQ out, and just makes it a flat 6. Because what happened? What happened during the slow grow? Because this army started as a slow grow army.
It did.
And then
500 points of Blight Kings is pretty gross. I think 2 Blight Kings put out 17 hits in one game that I played. Which was just hilarious.
17 6+.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and they explode into D6 or
no? So 2 Blight Kings, 2 dudes. They have 3 attacks each, and I think with a few exploding rolls of a 6, they came up with 17 hits. And for 2 models, that's a lot of attacks.
Oh, that was just for the 2 models?
That was just 2 dudes.
Okay.
Jeez. Yeah, my opponent was quite bewildered at that. I was quite surprised myself. So when it goes off, the blighted weapons are fantastic. But there are, many armies that can shut that down.
Well, then maybe a natural 6 would be a little too overpowered at that point.
It might be.
So maybe instead of D6 additional hits, it might be D3.
No, I'm happy to keep it as it is.
Of course.
I do like having the D6 because you roll that D6 and you hope for a 6. It feels great.
Well, D6 could be a 1.
It could.
It could be a 1 or a 6.
That's always a little disappointing.
Or an average of 4.
Grandpa Nurgle is fickle. Usually he rolls,
couple of 3s, a 2s, 4s,
Yeah. Roll a 7 on a D6. That's his favorite number. That'd be a pretty good trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, but we digress. The army does it does operate. You need to keep closely, packed to your main characters to get those buffs and those synergies. There are quite a few sorcerers in this list.
So summoning is possible.
Yes, and you can put out some contagion points, and it'd be nice to have a unit of plague bearers, waiting in the wings to pop them out.
With Spume, if you have 2 normal trees, with Spume you come in with the Blood Kings, and you keep that unit within 3 inches.
Well, you could keep
the normals. You generate contagion points.
Or you could also bring them in on the opponent's side of the table, which also generates contagion points. So you have options, and
then all of a sudden your 2,000 point army turns into a 2,500 point army.
It can, yes,
if you're smart about it.
Yeah, I'm not quite that smart with this.
No, I wasn't talking about you. Just it's a like a rhetorical smart. You know.
I'm not rhetorically smart either. So yeah, there's a number of different tricks you can do with those trees, and they're an important thing to add to any Nurgle army for that matter. But the Great Unclean One, he's a great supporting character with his bell, adding movement to the slow Blight Kings, and also making the Plague Drones movement 11, which is pretty terrifying. They can get around the board very nicely, and the Harbinger, I believe he's in movement 7, so he can keep up with them. +3 from the bell as well, so he's movement 10. He'll be right behind him.
Goes to a 13. No,
what's that?
His natural.
No, he's natural 7.
Okay. So he goes to a 10. Okay. Yep.
So yeah, he's an important character, central to the army. Festus is also nice. He's got that juicy spell. The Curse of the Leper.
Juicy spell.
It's very juicy. A lot of the Nurgle stuff is juicy.
It's squishy.
Nasty juice.
It's like those candies with the juice inside, like the juice squid.
It doesn't taste like you expect it to. So Festus, his spell is great. It can permanently reduce the armor save of an enemy unit by 1 for the whole game. So there's another artifact, the Rust Fang, which I like to take on the Harbinger, which is another -1 to the armor save. So, and if you add the Lord of Blights and the Blightcyst battalion, they get the Blight Kings all get a rend on that point. So you could start stacking some great anti-armor if you choose to build the army that way as well. So yeah, these guys are a lot of fun to play. It's a pretty elite army.
What most battle lines in the game are like a 5-up, 4-up. Most things except characters, some really like big baddies get a 3-up save. But most things are 4-up. So
yeah, these guys are 4-up.
Yeah, so once you reduce that to a 5-up, it could start hurting.
Yeah, definitely. If you start stacking some -1 armor, pretty soon those tanky units are just going to start dissolving, which pleases Grandfather Nurgle greatly.
And then all your chaff, all your screen units, they just disappear because from a 5-up it becomes a 6-up, becomes a nothing up, and then all of a sudden you're hitting things and they just die with no save.
And especially if you start exploding getting some exploding 6s on those Blight King hits, like you can put out a lot of attacks and they don't get any saves, and you start really mowing through a lot of troops that way.
Of course, yeah.
So, and as we said, the Plague Drones also put out a lot of attacks. So. And Bloab, he's also another support character. He's an awesome miniature. Probably a little overcosted, a little bit underwhelming, but I love the model so much.
Yeah.
He's so.
All the games that we've seen him in hasn't done too well. He's just been kind of average.
He's a great looking mini, and look at his cute Maggoth there, throwing out a disgusting stream of vomit. It just suits the army's
the green stream.
motif. Lovely, yes.
Yeah. The Green New Deal.
So yeah, he's definitely a support character. He's a little underwhelming in combat, but he does a little bit of combat throws out his spell is quite interesting. If you get it off, then on a unit, each phase that they take a wound in, at the end of that phase they'll take D3 mortal wounds. So the next shooting phase, if you can get a shooting attack and off on the unit, they'll take D3, and then in the hero phase you throw another arcane bolt at them. It'll be an extra D3 from that. Combat, you do a wound on the same unit. So
it's essentially it's multiple arcane bolts.
Yeah, if you can really stack some damage in different phases on the enemy unit you cast a spell on, you can really add up some extra mortal wounds. So it's a bit of a tricky one to pull off, but
he's a little bit of a hit and miss because of the probability. You might get a 1, you might get a 3, so it's it's not a flat damage. All the times I've seen him, he's done well. Hasn't done exceptionally well.
No,
he hasn't failed at all in any way. He was there. He was supporting. The model itself looks scary.
Yes,
so
it's a good distraction.
A lot of people don't analyze or don't put the psychological impact of models. In the game, you could bring some big, scary-looking thing to the game that doesn't really do anything for your army.
When you put down a behemoth, people
they go
wonder,
for it.
like,
They go for it. They try to target it. They try to kill it off first.
Yeah, he suffers just a little bit, maybe from being overcosted. Also, not having a demon keyword. I think that would really help him out. Because then he could run up and support the plague drones. That'd be awesome if they change that up for him.
I'd personally just use him as a mind game. He's good. He's not great, but you put him down and you make the opponent go for him while you're doing something else over here. So you're just trying to, kind of the sleight of hand trick, the magician kind of stuff. Yeah,
all three of the Maggotlords kind of fall into that same category, being good but not really great. But one cool thing about the kit was, I used the extra riders for a couple of the heroes. You can use them as
this is another one leaders. Of the heroes, and that one right there.
This guy here and him here. So they make good champions for the units. I put them on some Blight King legs, sculpted little extra belly, little extra fat rolls here and there.
Fat rolls,
they turned out lovely.
Got a jelly roll that thing.
Absolutely. If you're into that sort of thing. So. This is the army. The Blight Kings, I love them. They certainly were tons of fun to paint and put together. And it was an army that's been kicking around in my head for a long time. I was very happy to get it out of my system. But there's still a few...
What's great about Nurgle is there's a lot of kind of freehand work. Meaning that it gives you freedom of kind of experimentation.
There's a lot of different ways you can paint.
A lot of different ways. You could be a little bit sloppier. You could throw some washes on one side.
Oh yeah.
You can do all sorts of cool effects. You can use resins, epoxy resins to do swamps and put little skulls underneath, things like that.
Yeah.
So this army gives you a lot of opportunity to experiment, more so than certain other armies that need to be crisp and clean and on marble flooring.
Speaking of freehand, I did a little freehand on the banner. It's not something that I do too often, so
it turned out great.
I was quite happy.
It turned out so nice. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Little skull and some tentacles coming out. It fits the Kraken theme too, which is
you did that for us?
Bonus. Of course.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you so much for the army. It's been an absolute pleasure looking at it. But this army is not just for looking. So we will feature this army on one of our battle reports very soon.
I look forward to it.
And have Brian play it. Because, it's his baby.
I don't roll dice quite as much as I would love to, so it would be certainly lovely to...
But I don't think it would be fitting for it to be played for the first time on the channel by somebody else.
I'm totally down.
I think we'll have you over.
Their inaugural outing. Nurgle's Day Out.
The Nurgle's Day Out. Picnic.
Yes.
Little basket.
Well, he always eats all the picnic baskets, so...
we can call him Yogi Bear or Boo Boo or something. All right?
Big gut.
Big gut. All right. So, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy this army as much as we enjoy having it and painting it with Brian. We're gonna be doing some. I'm gonna paint some Nurgle stuff myself soon, showing you how I personally deconstruct his scheme, and see how I can match to the master, if I can match the master.
Yeah, come on.
But
oh shucks, I'm blushing.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've been out in the sun, right?
Yes, it's hard work out there.
Yeah, but yes, come back soon. Thank you so much for watching.
Awesome.
We'll show this army in action very soon, and stay tuned for more painting tutorials, army reports, and thank you so much to our sponsors. And yeah, we get all our miniatures from there. Please check out the description below for a link to the store, and head over. They will help you choose whatever you want. Not necessarily Warhammer. They even do D&D and Magic and other games. Comics.
You got some video games there.
Video games. It's like a one-stop shop for your nerdy hobbies and whatever you need. So
we know you're into that sort of thing.
Oh, I mean, they're watching us, so this should be like pretty. Yeah. All right. So.
Well, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you,
and see you next time.
Yeah. Okay. Crack on.
Crack on.